Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 13th March 2018. Now let us begin. Now for page 1, the first news we would be analyzing is about the Supreme Court seeks data on child sex abusers. Now let us understand this article. Now the reason this article is in the news is because a PIL was filed in the Supreme Court. Now this PIL was filed with regards to the huge number of pending cases of child abuse. Now according to the petition submitted, there is a roughly about 95% pendency rate as per the data given by the National Crime Records Bureau. Now with regards to it, a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court has asked all the High Court to provide data on the number of cases pending on child abuse, which have been booked under the Prevention of Children from Sexual Offences Act of 2012, or what is more popularly known as the POSCO Act of 2012. And this data has to be submitted within 4 weeks. Now the reason the Supreme Court has asked the High Court to provide data on cases pending on child abuse under the POSCO Act because the Supreme Court wants to set a deadline for the completion of trial in special courts designated under the POSCO Act. Now hopefully up till here you have understood as to why this article is in the news, that the Supreme Court has asked the High Courts to provide data on cases pending on child abuse under the POSCO Act of 2012. And the reason the Supreme Court has asked for this data is that the Supreme Court intends to set a deadline for trial completion of such cases under the POSCO Act. Now apart from this, there is also another article on page 9. Now like the previous article, this article also pertains to the introduction of the death sentence for those who have indulged in the heinous crime against children. Now the reason for this article to be in the news is that the government of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh have introduced amendments to the Indian Penal Code which would include a death penalty for raping a girl child who is aged 12 years or below. Now the article is not focusing on the proposed amendment to the Indian Penal Code, but what the article is focusing upon is the reasons given in favor of granting the death sentence to such child abusers. And moreover, the article also further highlights measures as suggested by the author to strengthen the criminal justice system in cases against children. Now according to the author, there are 2 reasons that have been given in favor of granting death sentence to child abusers. The first reason is that it would act as a deterrence, meaning that there is a belief that harsher punishments or strong punishments will act as a deterrence and will help in reducing crime against children. However, according to the author, there is no given empirical evidence that the deterrence theory works. And the second reason given by the author for reasons that have been given in favor of death penalty for child abuser is of justice, meaning that one of the reasons why death penalty is asked for child abuser is to ensure justice has been provided to the child. However, according to the author, giving the death penalty does not effectively address the real problems, and for which the author has given measures to strengthen the criminal justice system in cases against children. Now let us understand what are these measures. Now the first point highlighted by the author is that measures should be taken to strengthen investigations and criminal prosecution which take place under the POSCO Act of 2012. The second point highlighted by the author is that in such cases, specialized investigators, prosecutors, judges, mental health professionals, doctors, forensic experts, social workers that understand the trauma and that can ensure a humane atmosphere for the child should be incorporated in such trials. The third point highlighted by the author is that adequate measures for child protection and rehabilitation should be taken care of for those children who have gone through such a trauma. The fourth point highlighted by the author is that appropriate steps should be taken for proper reporting of crime against children. Now according to the author, most of these crimes are generally committed by close relatives. And since they're close relatives, there is no proper reporting of such crimes against children. The fifth and the last point highlighted by the author is that the court must come with some objective criteria regarding granting of death penalty in cases of crime against children. Now the author has given this measure because it would help in differentiating cases on point-to-point basis. That there is no objective criteria as to why one child abuser should get the death penalty and the other should not. And therefore, the Supreme Court must come up with some objective criteria regarding grant of death penalty in cases of crime against children. Now, hopefully, up till here, you've also understood the measures given by the author to strengthen the criminal justice system in cases against children. Now, with regards to your UPSC syllabus, these measures should fall under the GS paper 2 under the subsection Mechanism, Laws, Institution and Bodies for the Protection and Betterment of Vulnerable Sections. Now, these measures also become important from a human rights perspective. And now with this, we move on to our next article. Now I've taken this article from the editorial page on page 8. Now the main theme that this article talks about is the joint vision statement of the Indian Ocean region that has been recently signed between India and France. Now let us understand on how India and France are deepening their ties in the Indian Ocean region and what are the uncertainties with regard to the cooperation of India and France in the Indian Ocean region. Now as you might know, the French President Emmanuel Macron is on a visit to India, and during this visit, both India and France signed the joint strategic vision of India-France cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. Now before understanding where India and France are deepening their ties, let us first understand the French presence in the Indian Ocean region. Now France has overseas territories in the Indian Ocean region, and let us understand where they are with the help of a map. Now France has a territory in the Indian Ocean region in the form of Reunion Islands with military bases in the country of Djibouti, and in total, the French presence in the Indian Ocean region extends to around 9.1 million square kilometer, and it has roughly around 1.6 million citizens that reside within this overseas territory in the Indian Ocean region. So therefore, France has a huge presence in the Indian Ocean region. Now of this 1.6 million citizens, about 30% are of persons of Indian origin. So with regard to the French presence in the Indian Ocean region, you understand that its overseas territory in the Indian Ocean region is of roughly around 9.1 million square kilometers, and it has around 1.6 million citizens that reside in these overseas territory in the Indian Ocean region, of which around 30% are persons of Indian origin. Moreover, France also has military bases in Djibouti, the Reunion Islands, among other places, and therefore France has a very strong presence within the Indian Ocean region. Now in terms of cooperation, India and France have agreed to cooperate on maritime traffic security. Now under this provision, security would be provided to maritime traffic such as of ships, among others, from piracy, especially in the Horn of Africa region. Now apart from this, India and France have also agreed to ensure freedom of navigation and overflight. Now another field of cooperation in the Indian Ocean region would be of disaster management, which means that India and France would cooperate in tackling oil spills and also provide aid to victims of disaster in the Indian Ocean region. And another important agreement that was signed between India and France was a provision of reciprocal logistics support. Now under this agreement, India and France would help each other in support of logistics such as movement of troops, accommodation of troops, and help each other's armed forces, thereby enhancing cooperation between the armed forces, especially the navies. Apart from this, France is going to support India in India's entry to the Indian Ocean Commission. Now the Indian Ocean Commission is an intergovernmental organization that was created in 1982. Now it consists of Seychelles, Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, and the Reunion Islands that are an overseas territory of France. Now the members of the Indian Ocean Commission are on the eastern coast of Africa and also have a sizable population of persons of Indian origin, especially in Mauritius and Seychelles. And therefore India's entry into the Indian Ocean Commission becomes important. Now France is going to support India's entry as an observer and not as a member. Now moreover, France is also going to support India by having India's involvement in the projects of the European Commissions that are there in the Indian Ocean region. Now apart from this, under this agreement, India and France are going to co-develop a maritime surveillance satellite system, and it would be co-developed by the Indian Space Research Organization with the National Center of Space Studies of France. Now hopefully up till here, you have understood the new areas of cooperation and of strengthening of ties between India and France. You understand that India and France would cooperate on ensuring security for maritime traffic, and this security would be from piracy and pirates, especially around the region of Horn of Africa. Moreover, India and France would ensure freedom of navigation and overflight in the Indian Ocean region. Both countries would develop maritime surveillance satellite system which would be developed by ISRO and the National Center of Space Studies of France. Both countries would also cooperate in disaster management, wherein they would ensure tackling of oil spills that happen in the Indian Ocean region and ensure aid to victims who have suffered from disasters. Both countries have also signed an agreement for the provision of reciprocal logistics support, thereby enhancing cooperation between the armed forces, the Indian and the French navies. France would support India's entry as an observer to the Indian Ocean Commission, and similarly, France would help India in European Union projects in the Indian Ocean region. Now, apart from the new areas of cooperation, India and France also have a bilateral maritime dialogue that was formed in 2015. And similarly, India and France also have joint naval exercises such as Varuna naval exercises that has been going on since 1993. And similarly, India and France also have a joint naval exercise called PESEC, which are based on passage exercises. Now, apart from this, let us understand what have been the uncertainties that the author has highlighted in India-France cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. Now, according to the author, in terms of future course of action, in terms of what is the roadmap for India-France cooperation in the Indian Ocean region, is currently still missing. Apart from this, the author has also highlighted that France has a parallel commitment to lead with China in the Belt Road Initiative. Now, India has opposed the Belt Road Initiative of China, especially the CPEC project, which violates India's sovereignty in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. And similarly, India has showed its discomfort with China's project under the Belt Road Initiative in Maldives, Sri Lanka, and other countries of the Indian Ocean region. The third and the last uncertainty that the author has highlighted is of France's cooperation with the quadrilateral group. France and India have reiterated that they have a special and specific interest in the Indian Ocean region and would prefer to conduct their exchanges across the Indian Ocean region bilaterally. Therefore, it means that France and India would cooperate with each other bilaterally and not through the form of multilateral grouping. Now, hopefully, up till here, you have understood the 3 points that the author has highlighted about uncertainty in India France cooperation in the Indian Ocean region, wherein, according to the author, the future roadmap with regards to the course of action in India France cooperation is currently still missing, that France also has a parallel commitment to lead the Belt Road Initiative with China, and moreover, France and India have agreed to cooperate bilaterally in the Indian Ocean region, and therefore France would avoid joining a multilateral group such as the Quad, through which India and France could cooperate in the Indian Ocean region. Now, this visit of the French President Emmanuel Macron would be covered in the upcoming April edition of the Focus magazine, and this joint strategic vision of India-France cooperation in the Indian Ocean region becomes important from a UPSC mains perspective, wherein previously several questions have been asked in the form of comment India-USA as strategic partners, or explain India's strategic relationship with Russia, write a note on India-Russia defense ties, India-Israel cooperation, and similarly, a question can be asked in your mains examination with regard to India-France ties and cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. And with this, we move on to our next article. Now, we have taken this article from the editorial page on page 9. Now, what this article talks about is that according to the author, in the New World Order, India should promote rule of law. Now, the reason why, as given by the author, is that India should promote rule of law so as to create a path of sustainable prosperity. Now, sustainable prosperity, in simple terms, is a long-term vision to maintain a quality of life that ensures human needs, happiness, and dignity without harming the environment and the rights of others. Now, with regards to which, the author has given the example of the International Solar Alliance, where one of the goals of the International Solar Alliance is to promote global equitable sustainable development. And according to the author, the International Solar Alliance and its goal to promote global equitable sustainable development has helped India in the new world order, wherein it has promoted a third path, wherein the first path was of the United States model and the second path was of the Chinese model, and both of these earlier models had ignored a global equitable sustainable development. Now, hopefully up till here you have understood that according to the author, in the New World Order, India should promote a rule of law so as to create a path of sustainable prosperity, which means to maintain a quality of life that ensures human needs, happiness, and dignity without harming the environment and the right of others, and for which the author has given the example of the International Solar Alliance, which has the goal to promote global, equitable, sustainable development, which would help India in the new world order, since India is promoting a new third path and giving the world a new model apart from the earlier models of US and China, which had ignored the objective of sustainable prosperity through equitable, sustainable development. Now, apart from this, the author has also highlighted that to promote the rule of law, India should collaborate with others, wherein the author has given the example of BRICS, or the grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, in which India is collaborating with the other countries to form a new international economic order through the forms of the BRICS Development Bank, the establishment of the BRICS Contingent Reserve Arrangement, and cooperating in the reform of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and of the international finance system. And similarly, the author also gives the example of India's collaboration with ASEAN nations to ensure security of the Indian Ocean region. And therefore, according to the author, India can promote a rule of law in the new world order by collaborating with other countries or other groupings. And moreover, the author has highlighted the promotion of this rule of law in maritime trade routes, especially in the Indian Ocean region. And India can collaborate with the ASEAN nations, the quadrilateral grouping, France, and others to promote a rule of law that China adheres to. Now, a question was asked in your UPSC mains examination in the 2008 mains examination, which had asked to write a note on India and the New World Order. And with this article and the explanation given in this section, you would be able to answer this question from the specific perspective of rule of law and sustainable prosperity and development. And with this, we move on to the next article. Now, we have taken this article from page 10. Now, what this article talks about is the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Now, it has given several statistics with regards to the import and export of defense equipment by the United States, Russia, India, China, and Pakistan. And these statistics have been given for the year from 2013 to 2017. Now, these statistics are important from your UPSC mains examination because when questions are asked, such as India-Russia defense ties, or similarly of India-United States defense cooperation, and similar other questions with regards to defense ties or defense cooperation, these statistics give weightage to your answer. Now, according to this report, as given in this article, the US arms export to India has increased by 550%. Now, this increase is in the year 2015 to 17 in comparison to the arms export to India from the year 2008 to 2012. And within these last 5 years, USA has become the second largest arms exporter to India. Now, Russia continues to be India's largest arms suppliers, wherein 62% of India's total arms import has come from Russia. The third specific from this article is that India continues to be the world's largest importer of major arms, wherein India contains 12% of the global total. And there has been a 24% increase from the period of 2008 to 2012 to the current period of 2013 to 17. Now, the fourth point highlighted in this article is that China's arms import has decreased by 19%. Now, this decrease is in comparison from the years of 2008 to 2012 to the current period of study from 2013 to the year 2017. Now, the reason why China's arms import has decreased is because China has followed the policy of indigenous arms formation, wherein China is now producing more defense arms within its own country and therefore requires lesser imports from other countries. Apart from this, China is also the world's fifth largest arms exporter and also the world's fifth largest arms importer. Now, China has become the fifth largest arms exporter, wherein there has been an increase of 38% of China's defense arms export from compared to the year 2008 to the year 2017. And the more concerning issue for India is that most of these increase in defense exports have been to countries which are India's neighbor, such as Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, among others. Now, hopefully up till here, you have understood that the US arms export to India has increased by 550%, thereby making the US the second largest arms exporter to India. that Russia continues to be India's largest arms supplier, and that India continues to be the world's largest importer of major arms, wherein India contributes to 12% of the global total. And there has been an increase of 24% from 2008 and 12 to the current period of study of 2013-17. Moreover, China's arms import has decreased by 19% due to China's indigenous arms formation. And because of this indigenous arms formation, China has become the world's fifth largest arms exporter. And the more concern for worry for India, this increase in arms export by China has been to India's neighbor, such as Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, among others. Now, all these points and statistics becomes important to remember from your UPSC mains examination perspective in the international relations section for those questions which are asked with regards to India's defense ties or defense cooperation with other countries. And moreover, if such a question is asked, assess the growing influence of China in South Asia and the cause of concern for India. Now, wherein the growing influence, you can give the example of China's involvement in Nepal, Maldives, the CPEC project, the negotiation process between Bangladesh and Myanmar regarding the Rohingya refugees, among others. But another important aspect that you could highlight is of China's arms export to South Asia, which is also a great cause of concern for India. Now with this, we move on to our next article. Now we have taken this article from the editorial page on page 8. Now what this article talks about is that the e-way bill system would begin from 1st of April, wherein all interstate movements of good above the value of Rs 50,000 will be required for the generation of an e-way bill to help track the movement. Now as you might know, initially the e-way bill system was supposed to be rolled out on 1st of February, but the plan had to be postponed because the IT system could not handle the lack of e-way bills that were being generated by the consignors and the transporters. And therefore, the e-way bill system would be now launched in phases, with all states intending to be on the board for e-way bill system by 1st of June. Now what the article has also highlighted is the various points of worries with regard to the launching of the e-way bill system, wherein the first point highlighted is whether the IT system now could handle the lack of e-way bills that would be generated from 1st of April. Now obviously the e-way bill system would begin from the 1st of April, and therefore we have to wait and see on how these points of concern are raised and handled once the system begins. Now the e-way bill system has been covered in an earlier video from your UPSC perspective. So what we'll do is again revise the e-way bill system. Now we have taken the article on the e-way bill from the January edition of the Focus magazine. Now the implementation of the e-way bill has been changed from 1st February 2018 to 1st of April 2018 as per the recommendation of the group of ministers. But the final decision would be taken by the GST Council. Now let us first understand as to what is a way bill and then understand as to what is an e-way bill. Now a way bill is a receipt or a document issued by a carrier giving details and instructions relating to the shipment of the consignment of goods. Now these details would include the name of the consignor, which generally means the person who has sent the consignment or the person who is delivering the consignment, or the consignee is the person or the entity to whom the consignment is being delivered to. Moreover, it includes the point of origin of the consignment, its destination and its route. Now an electronic way bill or an e-way bill is basically a compliance mechanism wherein the person who is sending the consignment uploads the relevant information before the consignment is sent, and after uploading the relevant information, the system generates an e-way bill on the GST portal which would contain the relevant information. Now hopefully up till here you've understood as to what is a way bill and what is an e-way bill. Now the CGST rules of 2017 provides the mandate for the e-way bill. Now under this e-way bill, all interstate movement of goods which are worth over Rs 50,000 will be tracked under the GST regime. Now the main purpose of the e-way bill is to ensure that the goods that are being transported comply with the GST law and therefore helps in fulfilling the main purpose of the e-way bill, that is to check tax evasion. Now the advantages and disadvantages of the e-way bill. Now the first benefit is that it removes the bottlenecks wherein there were multiple checkposts at the borders between different states under the VAT system, and the e-way bill would remove all of these checkposts. The second benefit of the e-way bill is that it would provide a uniform rule which will be applicable throughout the country. Now the third advantage of the e-way bill is that it provides a digital interface, thereby providing faster goods movement since it eliminates the checkpost at state borders and improves the logistics by improving the supply chain management.
And the main benefit of the e-way bill is that it checks tax evasion because it provides online invoices, wherein an invoice, in simple terms, means a bill between the buyer and the seller. And since it would be uploaded on the GST portal, it would help in removing tax evasion. And because of this removal of tax evasion, the government of India would also collect higher revenue. Now, the concerns with regards to the e-way bill are is that it might provide power to certain officials who may harass the businessmen. And there is a current confusion with regards to the implementation of the e-way bill on how it would be implemented in some states and not in others, or on how it would work on a pan India platform. Now, hopefully, up till here, you've also understood the benefits and the concerns with regards to the e-way bill. Now, e-way bill forms an important part of your UPSC syllabus in GS paper 2 under issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure, and also in GS paper 3 under the economic development section.
Now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's paper. Now we move on to the question for today.